Siren. This is Seymour Bernstein, and he is the subject of a wonderful documentary that really everyone should see because it is universal. It is about a pianist, a former concert pianist, who then became a teacher, and really everyone can learn from him. So I'm here, I get to talk to him for a little while, and you guys are going to enjoy it too. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Letting us talk to you and ask you questions. So, you know, it is about a pianist and it is about music, but one of the things I think is really important for people who maybe see what the subject is and what it's about know is that it's universal, because teachers and artists, you know, there's artistry in everything. So how would you say, for you personally, do you feel like, having seen the movie multiple times, you see it as universal?
I do. I think the piano becomes a metaphor of life.
Mm-hmm.
And Ethan set out, when he made plans for the documentary, we had a meeting, and he said, my chief intent is to project to people how a passion for an art form can influence your life. Mm-hmm. In other words, not just to develop the art form, but to have it be directed into your life.
And as a teacher, how do you actively and you know, practically affect that in your experience when you're teaching?
Well, with some people it happens automatically. It happened that way with me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it must
As I said in the documentary, when I was 15, I realized that when my practicing went well, everything in my life seemed to be harmonious. Mm-hmm. And when it didn't go well, I was out of sorts with people. So that's when I concluded that the essence of who we are resides in our talent. Mm-hmm. You see, our talent is autonomous. Mm-hmm. It has a life of its own. Mm-hmm. If we neglect it, it plays havoc with us.
Is not the autonomy of your talent, though, the conduit between our individuality and the larger energy of what, you know, what everything is?
Of what your life is?
Of, like, our talent is like the go-between between who we are as individuals and the energy of the world, like everything together. It kind of connects us to everything else.
It ought to.
Yeah.
It ought to. And as I started to say, with my pupils, it can happen automatically. Mm-hmm. And with most of them, they have to make a concerted effort to pay attention to the process of practicing, to the process of developing their talent. Mm-hmm. Namely, they have to become aware that they're activating their emotional world, their intellectual world, and their physical world. Mm. I'm doing this because I'm a pianist, but it doesn't have to be piano or acting. It could be anything. The thing about playing an instrument or being an actor is because those three poles are always involved. Mm-hmm. Ethan has to act with his whole body. I have to act with my whole body when I play the piano. So you see, this is such a powerful synthesis that takes place when you practice an instrument. Mm-hmm. And you're not to leave it at the instrument.
Right.
You're to take that synthesis and direct it into everything you do in life. Now with my pupils, I make them aware of how they feel after their lesson. I always see to it that my pupils feel good at the end of their lesson, that they don't get depressed because of all that they have to do, mm-hmm. but that they take stock of what they did do. You know, their assets. Look here, we're always criticizing ourselves, right? We go through life criticizing ourselves. But it's very important to take stock of what is good about ourselves. So when you're studying music it's very important to know what you do well, not only what you can't do. And so here's the bottom line. When you do your best work, you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Well, when you feel good about yourself, only then you can make a contribution to other people.
Right. Absolutely.
Isn't that the goal in life?
Yes, absolutely. Well, feeling good and showing by example. That's pretty much it right there.
I even go so far as to say one of the chief requirements in life is to learn to love yourself.
Yeah. If you don't do that, you can't give anything to anyone else.
Well, there you are. Well, now, how do you go about loving yourself? Through achievement.
Mm-hmm.
That's where talent comes in. Whatever talent you have.
Washing dishes even. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It doesn't have to be art, but art adds a dimension to it.
I wouldn't go so far as to say washing dishes.
Yes, but I do think you can infuse art into anything.
That's pretty far-fetched, though. But I would say things like gardening.
Yeah.
Seamstresses.
Mm-hmm.
Photography.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you have a passion for,
okay,
you should do the best that you can do
mm-hmm.
to develop it. So you should know that when you're developing it, you're also developing yourself. That's the point.
Don't you think it's a matter of whatever the art is, if it's making you feel good anytime you're doing it, if there's any point where you're feeling good, that's probably something to be working in. That
you can't feel good all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're faced with challenges. You say, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to play this passage. Well, if you take the measures and you're willing to be humble and wait for the answers to how to overcome this challenge,
right,
then that's part of your development.
Patience. Ugh.
And hard work.
Mm-hmm.
As it has been brought out, everything is immediate in our society
right.
now. Look at what happens with our computer. In one instant, formerly we would have to go to the library to do research. Now we Google, type the subject, and out it comes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's immediate now.
Mm-hmm.
That tends to spoil us.
It's a little antithetical to learning, I think, in a weird way.
I think
It
so.
doesn't make your brain kind of process how to get the
Well,
information.
there you go, there you go. And then I notice that the memory function is atrophying in a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
They can't remember what you say to them.
You mean like in the process of having one conversation, or
Yeah.
really?
Or even on the phone, if you, let's say, you're making a reservation. You're making a plane reservation. You don't want to go on the internet. You want to speak to a live person. I've had this experience. Yes, may I help you? Yes, on September 27th, I need to fly to Los Angeles. What date do you want to leave?
Right.
I say, I just told you. She didn't take stock.
That brings me to something I think is really important in what you teach and in the way you teach, and that's listening. I think listening is everything in what you're talking about.
Well, the ear is the mainstay of our musical language, you know.
Mm-hmm. But not just that, it's also, when you talk about integrating the spirit, the sound, the body, all of those things together,
Yes.
it absolutely is, it necessitates being still and listening.
Of course it does. Absolutely.
But it also means listening to criticism, to self-criticism, and being okay with that stuff.
And also listening to what is good, not only what isn't good, but what is good. This is very important. You can build, you see. When somebody is filled with intense self-criticism, which easily can slip into self-loathing.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're playing something. If you're teaching a person like that, they're playing something, and you criticize them and work on what isn't good. Now they turn a beautiful phrase. You have to spend a lot of time in discussing that beautiful phrase. It's not just by accident. They're not just having a good day. Get it?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that beautiful? I ask the pupil. Oh, I don't know, I just feel good today. I said, well, I'm sorry. If you just feel good today, that means tomorrow you won't be able to turn on what you just did.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to repeat what you just did. It's not an accident. You have to know why that phrase was beautiful, and I try to point out. Then they can reproduce it. Once they know what the ingredients are, they can reproduce it. This is part of living.
Mm-hmm.
It's the yi and yang of living, the contrast of the negative and the positive. You have to take care of the negative, but you must also take care of the positive. Cherish it, find out why it's positive, and build your confidence on that.
Very, very good advice. And in going along with that, I think it was one of my favorite things in the whole movie was when you and Ethan were talking about, he questioned about monsters or the, artistic temperament that people let in society now. People get away with, well, it's been this way a long time, with this like monstrosity of a personality in people who are artistic. And you believe, as I do, that it's not necessary to be like that.
Oh, absolutely not. I try to explain why those people are that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember.
That the artist and the person are two individual, they're two personalities.
Mm-hmm.
The ideal is to fuse together the artist with the person so that there's no difference.
Mm-hmm.
But with the monsters that he was pointing out to, those people could not equate the unbelievable attainment of their art with their social world, which is totally unpredictable.
And inauthentic.
It flips them out. So they become monsters. One of my teachers was like that.
Yeah, you mentioned that. What if you had one of these monsters, like your teacher who is passed away? What if you could give them advice about how to get beyond that? What would you say to them?
Well, I would point out to them what Ethan discusses all the time in the question and answer sessions. Actually, it's quite recent that he started to discuss it. He always thought that life influences our art. It never occurred to him until he read my book, With Your Own Two Hands.
Right, yeah.
It never occurred to him that his art could influence his life. The opposite direction. So once he realized that, he started to meld together his artistic life and his social life, so that it's the same Ethan. The Ethan who is the actor is Ethan who is the husband and the father, and everything else in his non-acting life. So this is very important. So that's how you get rid of this demarcation, these monstrous people that he pointed out. My teacher actually made the statement when I told him what my book was about, that serious practicing can help you to integrate your personality. he said, how odd. I tried to keep my art uncontaminated from my social world. In other words, he was working to create the demarcation that I'm suggesting you eliminate. Don't you think that's odd?
Very, very odd.
And he was a wreck of a person.
And what's interesting, I think, is that however famous and successful these people are, they could be so much more successful artistically if they weren't separating out who they were with their art.
I think you're absolutely right.
And I also think it's interesting when you're bringing all of this up, when you're talking about music, one of the things I really loved about the movie was when you were playing or you were with a master class and you were playing a piece of music, that you were almost bringing in whoever the composer was, like that person was sitting in the room and being a part of the experience of playing or interpreting the work. That it was almost like their spirit was imbuing, all of it was coming together, not just you and your art and your social life, but the composer as well.
Well, you're very insightful.
Thank you.
Because that's exactly how it has to be. You know, this reminds me of the book that I read. Well, it's a very famous book, Zen and the Art of Archery.
Yes.
Well, for example, there was another book called The Inner Game of Tennis. And when a pupil of mine read that book, she said to me, oh, you have to read the book. It's all about playing the piano.
Right.
I said, what is tennis got? She said, you have to read that book. Well, Zen and the Art of Archery is all about being a pianist, or being an actor, or being a skillful anything.
Right.
So when the student described that it took him 5 years to learn to breathe, he actually made the statement, and it's just had a profound effect upon me. He said, when I finally learned how to breathe, I had the strangest feeling that I wasn't breathing at all. I was being breathed.
Right.
Whoa. That, you know, every time I tell that story.
Oh, and I love it. I love it. I know, me too.
I'm just overwhelmed by that. Why? Because when I practice my best, and I have a lot of experience with a piece, and I'm actually able to play that piece and feel that I'm in tune with the composer, I'm not playing at all.
Right.
I'm being played. What is playing me? That music is taking me over and moving me to give vent to its secrets.
Right. A new secret being told.
But that only happens when you kill yourself.
Disappear.
When you walk over coals, you know, you have to work really hard to get that achievement.
That sounds like a really important balance, again, with being critical about yourself to make sure it gets better, and also continuing to say, I did a really good job doing this thing or that thing.
I love myself at that point.
Well, what I think you're talking about too, and the art of archery also discusses, is flow, is synchronicity, is being in the moment and disappearing, not yourself disappearing, but disappearing into the moment, so that time disappears.
Well, you must have gone through this yourself. Otherwise, you couldn't describe it like that.
Yes.
Have you done that in your writing?
I do it right now.
You're doing it right now?
It's like my favorite thing in the whole world. So you're part of it. Sorry. That's very nice. Sorry. Oh, the whole world is going to see me cry with you, Seymour. Yeah.
You know what?
What?
When the audience sees, after the Q&A periods, they've seen the movie and they hear what I have to say. This occurred in LA more than anywhere else. I couldn't get out of the hall. Men and women came up to me and they came into my arms And they said, the movie has changed my life. They cry on my shoulder.
Well, Ethan said he cried through the entire thing, your whole concert, playing.
What Ethan said?
Yeah. He said he cried through the entire concert. So maybe you weren't paying attention to Ethan while you were playing.
He didn't exist because the music was taking me over.
Yeah, yeah.
But now you see, when I walked into that hall, you picture this. I hadn't given a public concert in 37 years.
Right.
I got out of the taxi. You saw this gorgeous rotunda of Steinway.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, it's reputedly the most beautiful showroom for pianos in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
There's no place like that. They moved out, you know.
Oh, no.
Steinway moved out.
Mm.
Maybe that's the last time that rotunda was ever filmed.
That would be good.
I walked into the hall, though I looked through the window first, and I saw all these famous actors and actresses sitting there. Lights everywhere, cameras, microphones. I flipped right out. I said, my God, this is going to be filmed for posterity. How am I going to survive this? Well, mind you, I was prepared.
Right.
I had been practicing 8 hours a day, just like I was going to make my debut.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, you know, the responsibility of doing that was overwhelming. And will I survive after 37 years? Don't worry, I had tryouts. I got really ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ethan comes over to me, gives me a big hug. What do you think happened?
Everything went away.
A profound calm came over me. I thought, oh, I mean, it was like a cloud lifted.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I didn't know at the time why that happened. But I played the recital very well.
Yes.
Survived it. Days later, I contemplated this. Now, what caused that? And I knew exactly what caused it. When you do something for someone else, it temporarily distracts you from your own vulnerability. And I wasn't going to let Ethan down,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what.
Well, it certainly...
I did it for him.
Yeah, I know, I got that sense. But I think it also removes self-criticism because it just gets shoved out of the way, I think. So...
Well, nothing else existed except that I had a task to perform for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to embarrass him in front of this huge congregation of his actor friends. So I stopped thinking of my own vulnerability at the time, see?
Mm-hmm.
And then I allowed the music to play through me.
So in the entire process of the performance, which is worth seeing the movie for alone, although there's all sorts of different reasons to see the movie, what were you feeling? Were you just in the music the whole time?
The whole time.
Well, that's good.
I told you I was practice.
Yes.
I had practice. By the way, you know, only part of the recital was in the documentary.
Right.
But the entire recital has been edited. And they're going to release it as a separate DVD along with the film.
Oh, cool. So what, it's going to be like a double thing that you can buy together? Or
2 DVDs.
are they going to release it as a CD musically?
Yeah.
That'll be good. Well, that's awesome.
After the recital, something very precious happened. First of all, Ethan was out of his mind. He was so happy.
Right.
He was happy I survived. And so we left the hall, arm in arm, walking across 57th Street to the Russian tea room. And Ramsey, the photographer, was following us with the camera. I saw the documentary. I said, Ethan, that moment that was so precious, that's left out of the documentary. where do you think it is now? After my recital. It's going to be in the document, in the DVD of the recital. After the recital, you see him and Ethan and I walking arm in arm away from the ball, two victorious people.
Absolutely, and I think you chose that piano really well too, because I think it became another member of the performance.
Whoa, that piano was so gorgeous.
It really was. One note alone, you could tell. I loved that part of the movie too. So, well, thank you so much for talking to me.
It was
this has just
pleasure.
been lovely. And really, you should see this movie. And as you've heard, there are going to be two different sections, two different DVDs that you can watch. One with the entire performance, and one with him talking in master classes and with his students and former students, and a little bit with Ethan. And I think it's absolutely. It's a little bit like Zen and the Art of Archery, only with piano.
So, yeah.
So how nice that you got to contribute that into the world of opening the mind and the heart in art. So thank you so much. And if you'd like to hear more or see more, do go on to Siren TV, and thanks so much for watching. Thank you, Seymour.
It was a pleasure.
Me too.